Well, things are definitely not getting off to a good start when it comes to Jaron Ennis signing with Eddie Hearn, DAZN, and Matchroom. Jaron Ennis and Eddie Hearn, they did try to make the Brian Norman fight, but Brian, he didn't want that fight at all. Of course, Jaron Ennis, he would rather unify the belts against an undefeated champion like Brian Norman rather than defend his title in a rematch against Karen Chukajan. For some strange reason, the IBF, they ordered this fight, and now it goes to purse bid. And Eddie Hearn doesn't even win the purse bid, which is amazing to me when you consider the fact that this is a new fighter that Eddie Hearn just signed. Why would you allow anyone else to promote this fight unless Eddie Hearn and Jaron Ennis, they've already planned that they're not going to take this fight and he's going to move up to 154. But if that were the case, why even bid on this fight in the first place? Because Eddie Hearn, he did bid. The winning bid was $2 million. They only outbidded Eddie Hearn by $250,000. Now, clearly, this is a fight that no one really cares about, and that's understandable. But what doesn't make sense to me is when Gennady Golovkin, when he fought Kamil Sesmeta, when he fought Steve Rose, those were fights that nobody wanted to see, and DAZN, they paid Gennady Golovkin top dollar to fight these guys. Golovkin was guaranteed at least $6 to $8 million to fight those guys. Canelo, he was guaranteed at a minimum $10 million to fight Rocky Fielding, to fight Avni Yildirim. Fights that no one wanted to see. So I just don't understand, how do you not win a purse bid that probably would have went to what, 2.5 million, maybe 3 million at the most? Is DAZN and Eddie Hearn really saying that Jaron Ennis is not worth winning that purse bid? When it comes to Golovkin, even though that Kamil guy that no one had heard of was supposed to be his mandatory, but they weren't ordering him to fight that guy. It didn't go to a purse bid. This means that if Golovkin wanted to, he could have chose to fight someone else. Golovkin chose that opponent, and DAZN, they accepted it. Just like Canelo chose to fight Avni Yildirim, and he chose to fight Rocky Fielding. We know that if Canelo Alvarez said he was not going to fight Avni Yildirim, he would never have to worry about the WBC stripping him of his belt, because he runs the WBC. He's the one that told the WBC, I want Avni to be my mandatory. That way it looks like I have to fight him. I'm noticing this pattern when it comes to Eddie Hearn, when it comes to him either losing purse bids or just not being interested in hosting a fight, even though that fight has something to do with his fighter personally. When Devin Haney was planning on fighting George Kambosos for undisputed, for all of the belts, Eddie Hearn and DAZN, they decided they did not want that fight on their network. Of course, it has something to do with George Kambosos' demands, but the point is, if DAZN had the kind of money to pay Gennady Golovkin to fight nobodies, why wouldn't they be willing to pay this Devin Haney fight when Devin Haney is trying to fight the best? He's going out fighting for undisputed. When Liam Paro went over to Puerto Rico to fight Subriel Matias and he beat him, DAZN's commentators, Todd Grisham and Sergio Mora, man, they were celebrating like that Paro win was a win for them, a win for DAZN. Todd Grisham and Sergio Mora, they kept talking about how impressive it was that Paro, he came all the way over to Subriel Matias' own backyard to beat him. They talking about how great of a story that was. Sergio Mora said, man, I got chills right now after Liam Paro was announced the winner. Devin Haney is a much bigger star than Subriel Matias or Liam Paro, and he was going into someone else's backyard to fight for undisputed, to become the youngest undisputed lightweight champion and the first undisputed lightweight champion since Pernell Whitaker. That fight is way more significant than Gennady Golovkin versus Steve Rose or Kamil Sesmeta. As loyal as Devin Haney has been to DAZN, they should have made sure that that Haney-Kambosos fight was on DAZN. So Eddie Hearn, he lost the purse bid when it came to Jaron Ennis. He lost the purse bid when it came to previous Demetrius Andrade fights. And they allowed Top Rank to host Devin Haney versus Kambosos for undisputed. Now listen, I'm not trying to say that anybody should be forced to host fights that people don't want to see. But if you feel that way, it should be that way across the board for every fighter. DAZN, they could have allowed Golovkin versus Kamil Setsmeta to go to a purse bid and have someone else host the fight. What's really crazy is DAZN, they didn't host Devin Haney versus George Kambosos, but they did host Teofimo Lopez versus George Kambosos. But with that all being said, I will say Eddie Hearn, he did try to make the Jaron Ennis versus Brian Norman fight. And Brian Norman, he did not want the fight. I mean, even now, after we find out that Eddie Hearn lost his purse bid, we see that Brian Norman and his father, they're celebrating that Jaron Ennis lost the purse bid. But they're not celebrating because they want to come back to the negotiating table. And speaking of that, I'm starting to notice another shift. There was a time not that long ago when some fans, they would try to discredit Terrence Crawford by saying that he's avoiding Jaron Ennis, despite the fact that Jaron Ennis is fighting at 147 and Crawford is fighting at 154, right? Once again, a lot of these fans that were saying this, they weren't saying that Crawford was avoiding Boots because they were fans of Boots. They were saying this just to discredit Crawford because Crawford is the best fighter in the world and he's considered the bigger threat. But now that it's been established, at least before this whole purse bid situation, it's been established that Jaron made it clear he's staying at 147. He wants to unify, become undisputed before he moves up to 154. Now, a lot of those people are slowly starting to discredit Jaron Ennis. They celebrate if Jaron Ennis can't get the Brian Norman fight. If the purse bid is lost. If there's any bad news for Jaron Ennis, a lot of those same fans are now celebrating that. It's no different than the Devin Haney-Gervonta Tank Davis rivalry. A lot of these fans that hated Devin Haney, they didn't hate Devin Haney because they were Gervonta fans. They were looking at it as the lesser of two evils. At the time, before the Ryan Garcia situation, Devin Haney looked like he was the bigger threat. Now that Devin Haney is out of the way, you go look at the comments when it comes to Gervonta Tank Davis, and you'll see all these race fans that was dissing Devin Haney before, they're now dissing Gervonta. We know what time it is. So with that being said, Jaron Ennis, he might be forced to move up to 154 a little sooner than he planned. Now that's good news for boxing fans. It might not be the best news for Jaron because he had plans of becoming, once again, undisputed, unifying the belts at 147, making a name for himself or a bigger name for himself there, then moving up to 154. But if he moves up to 154, there will be no shortage of opponents. I would love to see Jaron versus Madrimov. And it's just going to be really nice to see the contrasting styles, not just of Madrimov and Jaron, but how Jaron would do against Madrimov compared to how Crawford did against him. Ennis's father, he already said right after the Crawford fight, we would knock out Madrimov. He said all those feints and stuff he was doing, we got something for that. So he said we would knock him out, but he ended that interview by saying, when we move up to 154, which at the time he made it sound like it's going to be quite some time before we make that jump. Well, now, like I said, because of the situation, they may be forced to do it sooner. Let's see how it all plays out. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, fever blisters, diabetic ulcers, this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called LO Deki Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to lodeki.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram.